Our first University of Tulsa Hall of Fame honor team is the 1961 and 1962 TU men's track teams. The current University of Tulsa track program under head coach Steve Gully is in good hands with championship teams and championship individuals aplenty. But it was not always that way. Especially in the early years, track was just an afterthought. However, in the early 60s, Coach Ted Ballard injected life into the program with recruiting.
Yeah, when we arrived, the TU program hadn't been much for many years. I don't know, maybe it was sometime back in the past, but I think there was four to six guys on the team.
Well, track in the early 60s was sparse, I'd say, to say the least. I think it would have been easy to not even have a track team, but I admire Glenn Dobbs for his vision. I think he wanted to have all sports represented.
Coach Ballard was not a full-time coach, but he added the necessary components.
We had one coach. This was not the day where you had more than one coach, so we had one coach, and he was the athletic trainer.
Coach Ballard was, like he said, a trainer. And he recruited a bunch of Tulsa boys.
But he was the one and only coach, and he did know a lot about conditioning, and so he helped us in that regard, and he drove us pretty hard, I would say.
Coach Ballard, for a guy that was not a track coach, who had been thrown a position, to recruit what he did and do what he did was pretty amazing.
There was a track in Skelly Stadium, and there was a north stands, and the track went under the stands. It was a cinder track, and everything was cinder in those days. This was before synthetic tracks.
Well, the track went behind the north stands. So the runners, as you run around there, totally disappeared, to the stands, and then they came out. And there was a lot of things went on back there underneath the stands too. You could get really bumped around.
We were under that old stadium built in the 20s or 30s, Skelly Stadium. Dank, dark, old showers.
It was a hard track, it was a dirty track, and you had to really like it to be there. If you wanted to come out for track, you were on the team in those days because there wasn't that many people.
So Coach Ballard continued to cobble together the track program. In 1959, the Hurricane was a non-factor in the conference meet with only 2 performers who scored 10 points. But by 1961, and no one knew it at the time, TU was ready to challenge for a Missouri Valley Conference title.
In those days, the Missouri Valley Conference meet was kind of the high point of the year.
Well, I don't think any of us went up there, or our coach, with the idea that we would win the meet. I don't think we even had those thoughts.
And up until that point, I don't think any of us had any notion that we could win that conference meet.
Drake was by far the favorite. We were picked to come in last, and Drake was the winner from the year before.
The TU was basically a nobody in track. It never had been, apparently.
Everybody was taking points in the events. I think just about everybody scored, and we scored, I believe, in every event other than the 2 mile and the 440. So the meet went on, and there was a rain storm.
The mile relay was over, and the track meet was essentially over, and it was after midnight, and the pole vault was still going on.
We kind of figured out that Drake and us were just literally tied. It was down to the pole vault.
So there were 2 guys left in the pole vault, Smoot and a guy from Drake.
It was Dave Smoot, the sophomore, the new kid, versus the last year's champion from Drake.
And the way it was going to work was that if they tied, Drake would win the meet. So Smoot had to win as a sophomore, and he knew it.
Back in the day, there was a comedian named Brother Dave Gardner. He was a Southern comedian. We used, like I said, a lot of comedy out of Brother Dave's stuff, that our routines that we'd spiel at each other something. He would say, don't scare none of me, referring to a competitor.
Dave, he would say loudly, "Don't worry guys, I will win this." He just kept working on that other guy's brain, I think.
That night, as I was passing by him there, he said that little saying about, "Don't scare none of me," referring to that Drake guy. And I just remember that, because that was our saying.
Dave Smoot went first on the vault, but he cleared that bar with his sweats on, just to psych the other guy out, and the other guy never, both of them had been higher than that, but the other guy never cleared the bar, and we were the winner by less than a point. That's just the kind of competitor he was. He wasn't going to lose. I don't care how high they had to gone, he would have won it.
It was interesting to watch him. I mean, he just seemed to be have every bit of confidence that he could, and he did. And we won that meet by 5/6 of a point.
We were pretty excited and just blown out that it happened, but I do believe we had to get in the cars and drive back to Tulsa.
That night, it was just incredible the way our little team, unknown.
Just unbelievable. Unbelievable that, and everybody contributed. Everybody got points somewhere in the meet, so there wasn't anybody that didn't contribute.
So the Hurricane won the NVC championship in track. And what do you do for an encore? Well, you go out and win it again, and they did in 1962.
In our second championship year, it was different in that we were I don't know whether the newspapers thought we were the favorite, but we did, and our coach Ballard did. So it was a different environment.
The second time we won, we had 15 people there and 13 of them scored, and we only won by 7 points. Drake was a 30-point favorite that year.
62, I just don't think wasn't the same build-up, because the pole vault ending the way it did that first year was more memorable, I think.
We thought we could do it, and we did. I mean, we were happy and we celebrated, but it wasn't anything like that first year.
We had seen Coach Ballard do so much for us, and we really wanted to win that meet for him. And that was our pitch to the team that night when we got together. We said, this guy's done a lot for us, and we could win this meet. We should win it for him. And we did. And those were probably the high points in 60s track history.
The 1961 and 1962 TU track teams, unsung, somewhat unknown, but no question a golden moment in University of Tulsa athletic history. And now we welcome the newest members of the University of Tulsa Hall of Fame, the 1961 and 1962 Golden Hurricane track teams.
When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. Oh, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. So darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. It's the sky that we look upon
Well, I'm honored to be the spokesman for the group, and it really is quite an honor for the whole team. And I'm sure I speak for all of these guys when I think that we just wish that Ted Ballard and the rest of the team could see this, because nobody would ever have predicted it. Is that me? Is that better? The video told a lot of the story. I'll just make a few comments. First, about the coaches. In 1961, Ted Ballard was 27 years old, and he was in his third year as coach at TU. And he was just kind of the right guy at that time. He was very enthusiastic. He wanted to promote track. He took his meager scholarship money and helped us out as much as he could. He helped some of us with summer jobs. And most of all, he got us into competition. He got us into meets. He would rent 3 station wagons, and his wife would make about 30 sandwiches, and off we'd go for a one-day meet in the 4-state area. And I think that really helped us. And he put together a good workout program as well. So he was just the right person. But as was mentioned, his real job was the athletic trainer for all sports. So there was a lot of days when he was late getting there, taping people up, dealing with injuries. And so we were out there kind of by ourselves, except that he had an assistant, and that was Charlie Lone Chief, who had finished his eligibility, and he taught us how to work hard, I think, because he liked to work out. He did it with us, and he was an inspiration to all of us. So those two guys were a perfect team to drive that team. I think in '61, as the video said, when we went to the conference meet, we really weren't thinking about winning. The most points Tulsa had ever scored in the Missouri Valley Conference meet was 25 points in 1952, I think. So, and there were years when, they only had a few people. So we wanted to do our best as individuals, but we weren't really thinking that much about winning the meet. Start out, we won the 440 relay. And that was a first. And there were a lot of firsts in Tulsa's history that night. That relay team was 2 sprinters, a hurdler, and a half-miler. And we set a school record. And the next year we had 4 sprinters, and those guys never did break that record. It's all in the handoffs. But Bill Brown won the 100, another first for Tulsa. And as was stated, we scored in 14 of 16 events. And somewhere in the middle of this meet, there was a rainstorm, which pushed everything back. And a lot of people thought Drake had won, and they left. There wasn't that many people there to begin with. So the mile relay took place. It was usually the last running event, took place about, must have been close to midnight. Drake won, we got second. And it was down to the pole vault, as it was stated. So it was Jerry Shipman from Drake, who was a senior. He wanted to win, and our new sophomore, Dave Smoot. And like Johnson said in the video, Smoot said he would win, and he did. But the funny thing was, nobody was there. We didn't have a big dog pile celebration or anything. It was just, we're all standing around. There was nobody there. All the other teams had left. It was just these 2 guys pole vaulting. And we were so happy for Dave, we didn't really think about winning the meet, and finally Coach Ballard says, "Hey, you guys won, somebody go get the trophy." And so the next year, Ballard was at it again. He was really trying to promote track. And one of the things he did, he found a contract company that had a portable track, and he brought this track to the Fairgrounds Pavilion. This was early in the season when most people were, if you had an indoor track team, you were doing indoor. So they set this wooden track up at the pavilion, and Ballard had the Big Four track meet with OU, OSU, Tulsa, and Arkansas, and some high school demos. And none of it, we'd never run on most of us hadn't run indoor at all, let alone on a banked wooden track. But that wasn't the point. The point was for Ballard to get some people to come and see it and promote track. And with that, he was very successful. He also got us a lot more meets and more meets in Skelly Stadium. And as was stated, you know, the track was in Skelly Stadium. We practiced in Skelly Stadium. We did endless 220s and 330s and thousands of times up the north stands. And by the time we went to Wichita that year, a lot of people were injured. We had stone bruises, shin splints, pulled muscles, including a season-ending pulled injury for a couple of key guys. So we were optimistic, but we knew we were pretty banged up when we got there. And as the video said, we had a meeting the night before, and we kind of said, let's win this for the coach. And so we went out there the next day, and everybody was supporting each other. We scored in 15 of 16 events. Everybody that was there scored at least a point, and we had some surprises. We had a distance runner who was in his senior year. It was Don Hepner. Don was a TU cheerleader and the team comedian, and he had never scored in the Valley Conference meet. So that night he had a career night. He got third in the mile and second in the 2 mile. And when he was running the 2 mile, the rest of us on the team were stationed all the way around the track, just kind of trying to get him to go the next 100 yards. So he did, and he scored 7 points, the only points he ever scored, and we won the meet by 7 points. We had some weight men. The weight men are always kind of forgotten because they're working down on one end of the field. And in those 2 years, we had four weight men. George Wallace and Ronnie Emmons were there 2 years, and Adam Papalarchik in 61, and Dan Hauptman in 62. And those guys always scored points. And a lot of people, as I said, didn't notice, but they were part of the core of the team for sure. So the pole vault was not very dramatic in 62. Smoot won, set a Missouri Valley Conference record, and Jack Doss, our new sophomore, got second. So we scored 9 points in that one event. And then by the time we had the mile relay, basically it was over. And that time, I think we really did feel good that we had won something. We got a lot of publicity. We were kind of heroes for a week when we got back. And it was a really special time for the school and for those of us on the team. And in that period of time, we won 2 conference championships. Our coach was Missouri Valley Conference Coach of the Year. One of our guys was the first guy to be a track and field guy in the Hall of Fame. And the rest of us had made great friends and great memories. And it's just such an honor to be here and celebrate what happened so many years ago. I would like to just take a second and name the people, because they weren't all in the pictures. The pictures were always kind of goofy, but I'd like to just name them, and some of them are here. I thought you'd be up here, but hold up your hand. Jerry Anderson was 61 and 62. He was quarter miler and mile relay. Joe Broughton, 61 and 2, distance. Bill Brown, 61 and 2, sprints, relays. Jay Caldwell, 61 and 62, he was a distance runner. Tom Kaufman, 61, middle distance. Jack Doss, who's here, was pole vault in 62. Ronnie Emmons is here, he was 61 and 62. He was a thrower, he threw the shot. Joe Gibbons, 61 and 62, he was a distance runner. Bill Hammonds, 62 hurdles. Ray Heath, 62 high jump. Dave Hickman, 61 pole vault. Don Hepner, 61 and 2 distance. Dan Hauptman, 62 thrower. Threw the shot, discus, javelin. Don Johnston, 61 and 2, who sprints, relays. Johnny Jones, 61, was a high jumper. Cecil Maddox, 62, sprints and relays. Bobby McGoffin, 61, sprints. Me, Bob Newell, 61 and 62 hurdles, relays. Adam Papalarchik, 61, threw the javelin. Charlie Phillips, 62, sprints and relays. Bill Salmon, 62, sprints and relays. Dave Smoot, 61, 62, he also won in 63, three-time Missouri Valley champion and Hall of Famer. Jerry Swanson was sprints. George Wallace, 61 and 62, he was a thrower, shot, javelin. And Keith Yarger, over here, 61 and 62, middle distance and relays. So that's who we were. We were just a bunch of guys that liked to run and jump over things and throw stuff. And we had a couple of good coaches that tried to make something out of us. And as I said, we made a lot of good memories, a lot of good friends. And on behalf of all of us, we're proud to be here. Thank you.